Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to take a look at Groove Agent 5 SE, which is included with Cubase 10. Now, probably most of you know that it's a VST instrument which comes with Cubase, and this is going to look at some of the features which have already been in it, which I think get neglected, and also some new features which are with this version, which is version 5. So obviously just adding an instrument track there, and there's your empty Groove Agent SE5 window, which looks very similar to the previous versions of Groove Agent and so on. So just going to look at some of the features in this and the new features. So first things first, I think as far as most people get with this is you just load up a kit. So often you could just load up a kit from the program selector there or from here. So let's just load up. Well, that one's ready, so we'll load that up, and you get as far as this and play with it on your keyboard. We will look at this in a little more detail in a minute, but there are actually a great number of kits which are included. So if we just show the load panel, which is to the right, we can see we've got all sorts of different kits which are included with it. 183 by the looks of things, and going to look at this one, which is reminiscent of things such as, you know, Superior Drummer, etc., where we have a picture of a drum kit and some severed hands by the side there, which we're playing, and so on. And you get some fairly straightforward editing tools to go with each part of the kit, and those kind of things. So you can edit exactly how open and so on a hi-hat is, the kind of claps you've got. But a lot of people probably won't use that. They will probably be using the kind of things which we're going to look at now, which again has been included in previous versions of Groove Agent, but I think most people just load this up and then don't really do much with it, and that's a pity because there's quite a lot you can do with it, and it's quite powerful. It works pretty well. So if we load up this vintage kit here, we go into the more traditional sample-based editor, and we can see in the case of the kick, we've got 5 different samples. So these are the samples which are playing, and they play at different velocities. So on these pads here, I'm doing everything on the screen so you can see what's actually happening rather than me playing a keyboard and it not being apparent. So low down on the pad is low velocity, and we can see we get kick V1. High up on the pad is high velocity, which is louder and a different sample as well. If you click the eye here, it shows you how many samples are on each pad. So we can see the kick's got 5, the cross stick has got 2, snare's got 5, etc. So probably the more important parts of the kit have got more samples and more range of velocities, etc. So we're just going to take a quick look through the kind of things you can do in here. So you can alter the range of velocities which the samples play on by just dragging the dividers between them. So if we decided we wanted to have this kick V5 be much more of the velocity range, we can just drag these other ones down, and then now we can see that that's taken up much more, from 84 to 127 velocity, so sort of 3/4 up to maximum, probably 2/3 actually up to maximum, etc. So you can play around with the balance of these to get the one that you want covering a larger velocity range if you want. Now let's look at, let's say, the snare here. So there's also, as well as the main, we've got pitch. So we've got a pitch envelope here we can apply. Now the crucial thing with quite a few of these instruments, I think the settings aren't set to allow you to play around with things straight away, because there's often 2 or 3 things you need to do, which means you play with one control and it won't do anything, and then you go, well, this doesn't work, or it just means you look elsewhere. So for instance, this is on the snare here, and it's not changing the pitch, and the reason is because the envelope amount here isn't turned up. So if we turn this up, I'll turn it up to ridiculous, you can hear now clearly that is working, and it works more effectively with lower velocities because they've got less of a real pitched element. But obviously there it's sounding like some weird Simmons drum kit that's gone wrong from 1983. Now obviously that's an extreme example, but it just shows that you need to have maybe 2 or 3 things happening before they will work. Same, we've got a filter which we can turn in. So we've got filtering, which is very similar to the filtering which is on Hallian Sonic as well. So you've got different filter modes, etc. And again, an envelope amount and the effect that velocity will have. So we need to turn down the cutoff as well as play around with this to get everything working. So you can just have a static filter, or you can have the envelope working, and so on. And say we're not going to go into this in great detail, but it's something to play around with. But say with the filter, you need to turn it on and change the cutoff. And if you want it to change dynamically, you also need to change the envelope amount. So there's a few things you need to do to get this to work. I'm just going to return this back to standard. So we go back to a sane world. Amplifier, say pretty standard as well. So there's some playing around you can do in here. You can edit this to your heart's content. Now that's something which has been in previous versions of Groove Agent, but say it's something that I think most people aren't aware of, and they think, oh, you know, I need to go out and buy battery or whatever to get kits that I can customize. In fact, there's a lot of customization you can do with this. You can load your own samples as well, so you can just drag them onto pads, and you've got 8 sets of 16 to go through here. So we've got access to all 128 MIDI notes which are available, but it defaults to 3 with 16 pads, partly because that's probably the kind of thing that, you know, Akai machines used back in the day, and people have got used to that. But also 16 is a pretty good number for the amount of samples that you're going to use on a kit, and it means you can have access in one page to all those kind of things. You can see most of these actually have no samples on them. It's really just around there that we have some, and the rest of it is pretty much empty. Anyway, I'll leave you to experiment with that. The new stuff. So the thing that I think is interesting and new is that we now have an extension to this pattern section. So drum patterns, I'm just going to close that so we're looking at one thing at a time. So drum patterns are available in Groove Agent previously. So for instance, if you click on pattern, these pads, instead of playing just the note in question, so when we're back on instrument, this pad is just a kick. But when we're on pattern, this actually triggers a pattern, which in this case has loaded up this vintage kit 1 AM beat 1. And when I play it, we get that playing, and on beat 2, we get a more standard beat playing, etc. Okay? So to aid with me playing around with this, I'm just going to change a setting. So here we have these pad settings, and I'm going to put it into toggle mode, which means I can click it once and then play around, and it will just keep going. So now I've clicked it, it's just going to carry on playing. So that's, again, this is something which has been present in Groove Agent previously, but it's still quite useful, and it's something that not a lot of people know about, to misquote Dennis Norden. But you can take these MIDI patterns. So if you find one that you like, and we'll look at selecting those others, you can actually drag these to your MIDI track. So we can just click and drag and then take that onto there, and then there is that in all its glory. So just have a quick look at that. We can see there's the MIDI already programmed, ready for you to play around with. So then you can start editing it, and you can see the things that I rattle on about endlessly, such as, you know, some slackness in the timing and so on, and variations in velocity are present, and that's why it sounds more convincing than it might do otherwise. Now, going back to this isn't the main event here. The next thing is that we have these styles. Now, this is where I think quite a few people will probably run aground, because again, it's one of those moments where you click on it, you think, right, I'm in style mode, I click that, oh, nothing happens, so I'm leaving that playing. It should be doing something. It's not doing anything. Oh, it's broken. I'll go and look at something else. But the reason is we need to select a style, and it's not immediately apparent because that control is pretty much black, and it's only when you hover over it something happens at all. So we're going to select a style here. So there are 237 styles included at the time of recording. Anyway, so let's just load up something fairly straightforward. So rock, metal, classic rock, and then if we pick our time signature, I'm just going to pick soul, which obviously is classic rock. Not quite sure why that's got categorized there, but anyway, we'll load that up, and now when we press this button, this is doing something. Okay, now if you've used anything similar to drum corps, etc., then this is much more like that, because it allows you to create more interesting drum patterns, or Groove Agent to do that for you. So that's playing the main pattern as indicated on this dial here, but we've got intro, ending and fills which we can listen to. So if we want to listen to the intro, maybe we'll go to number 1 and play that. So we can see from this it's 4 beats long because that's how long the counter's going for, and maybe intro 2. So all those kind of things. Now again, all of these, once you've got it set on here, you can just drag it to your MIDI track or instrument track which has got MIDI on it, and there you can see there's that. So as soon as you like it, drag it over there and then you can play around with it, edit it, manipulate it however you want. Just going to delete those to clear things up a bit. It gets a little bit more interesting than that. So you'll see when we're on the main mode, we've got these other buttons which come alive, and one of them that's quite useful is autofill. So if we put autofill to every 4 bars and then we click the little show button there, we can see it's going to pick from any of those 8 fills pretty much randomly. So now when we play our main beat, which I'm going to set to be 2 bars long so it doesn't do any variation. So here you can pick how much of it plays. So it's going to play that on repeat, but then every 4 bars it's going to show us it's going to be doing a fill. So again, I'll just click that. So when we get, and here comes a fill. So that was fill number 6, and then another 4 bars later we get fill number 1, and so on. So that's the way that works, and obviously you can change the length. There are sensible musical lengths here, but it's easy to set those up. So if you were to set that to 16 and then drag this onto there, so this time we get 16 bars with a fill at the end, and so on. And in fact, let's see what happens if we do that again. Yeah, we get a different one. So you get a randomly different one as well. With a bit of work, you can work out which ones are what, but it's a very quick way to generate drums which are there or thereabouts of what you want them to be. Now, you can change the sound, so you can change the kit independently of these styles. So you could have soul style, but played on, you know, electronic or whatever kit you want. So the two are not linked together. But I think this is a really useful way, say, to save you having to do some of the mundane programming that otherwise takes a long time, or to get some inspiration for, you know, a song, because you can set up a loop and some structure pretty quickly and get things, you know, endings and fills and so on set up pretty quickly, and use those straight away by dragging them across. So it's quite useful, and say a fairly big upgrade. Another thing which has changed with this, as with nearly everything on Cubase, is that it's resizable. Now, initially you think, well, that's not that useful, is it? Because that's just, you know, changing size there. But if you're in the editor here, you'll see that the important part of the editor, i.e. the graphical part, does actually scale. So if you're using it in a bigger window, like a 4K monitor or whatever, then this will be much more usable because the area is much bigger. Let's say that's a introduction to the new features, or some of the new features on Groove Agent SE5, which I think doesn't get as much love as it could do because it's just included with Cubase and sat there, and often people just load up sounds. But there are quite a lot of things that you can play around with it, and we've really only touched the surface because there's a mixer to play with. So there's plenty of options to muck around with. But there's a mixer to play with and so on. And obviously this is a smaller version of Steinberg's full Groove Agent, which is available, but they give you quite a lot of features for free, and probably ones which a lot of people either don't know about or don't make much use of. So I hope you found that useful, and thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Also, check out my book, The Complete Guide to Music Technology Using Cubase 10. It provides you with a thorough grounding in all aspects of using Cubase, music technology, and music theory. Follow the link for more information and to order a copy today. Thanks for watching.